Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one we're going to do part 3 of the FPS tutorial series. In this one we're going to cover, so from the raycasting from last video, we're going to move on to being able to have an enemy script with health and then damage the enemy and kill them. And then maybe if we have time, obviously have a health bar so that we can actually, click and then know how much health they've got. I know in some first-person shooters, actually in most, you don't see enemy health bar, so it's up to you to do the health bar part. But then obviously you could move on to maybe doing like damage numbers flying off the enemies, or however you want your game to work. But if you want to follow along with this, we'll have health bars above the enemy. So, first thing I want to do is, I want to thank the Patreons, the donators on Patreon. Thanks to Paul Robinson, Phil Bourne, and Wesley for being donators. If anyone else wants to help support, then the link is in the description below. So, last video we ended off, if I remember correctly, when you press play and you click on the enemies. Well, the boxes you can shoot, and it logs to their what we've got. So Bob Bill, because I named the cubes. Which on here, if we go to the camera, here we go. We check for shooting here. Now we will end up moving this away from the player camera. We'll have like our own script for handling shooting and then checking ammo and what kind of gun it is, and that'll all be handled in special scripts that derive from a gun class which we're going to make. But for now, we're still going to keep just the normal click to shoot, and we want to deal damage. So this is what we currently do. We just debug the thing we've collided with. So, and obviously, if we write the code in here, we can then just cut it out and put it somewhere else if we need to. So it's not the end of the world doing it here. But yeah, currently we just log to the console the name of the thing we hit. But now we want to basically say, hey, if we hit an enemy, then, we want to damage it. Now, in an FPS, when you shoot things, generally there's going to be more than just enemies. Like maybe you'll have other things you can hit. Maybe you'll have special things in the terrain that you hit that do other things. Like I don't know, you might have well, first of all, like boxes that get destroyed, obviously enemies that take damage. You might have things that you hit and it triggers a door or something. I don't know, you'll have different things that you can shoot basically. So we don't want to just create loads of different specific classes that just do the same thing. So one way we can do it is we can have an enemy script, or we could have obviously multiple parts on an enemy script. Now at the moment we could just write an enemy script and we could split it up later when we get more mechanics. So for example, this cube here, let's just add, let's do it in the folder so it's all neat. We'll add a C# script. We could keep it like, so we have player camera movement and player movement controller and player camera controller. So we could keep which just handles like, dying, taking damage, and so on. So we could have an enemy health component. Okay. And let's make a folder. We just want to keep our folders organized because that's obviously a good thing to do. So folder, we'll have a player folder. So we put the player camera and the player movement in there. And enemy health. What we'll do is we will let it load. Okay, so assuming these are our enemies, what we should do really is we'll delete that one. We'll just call this test enemy, and we'll go make a prefab of the test enemy. Now we only have 2 prefabs, so it's fine for now. And I don't know, I want him to be more of a kind of person shape. So what we'll do is actually we will create a capsule just like ourselves. Put that at 1, 0, 0. I said 1.5 for a capsule. We'll go move him over here to near the cube. I guess we can just delete the cube to be honest. Or we could go to the prefabs and just drag the capsule, call it test enemy. We could drag it on top of this one and replace. So now when we put in new ones, it's just this. So here we go, here's some enemies. We might want to give it a material, so open prefab. We'll give it a different material, just so we know it's a different color to us. It's first person, so we don't see ourselves anyway, but let's have a material. I mean, material sorting we can do later, and it's not really an important thing anyway. Let's just get out of this. I don't like the shininess. I don't know, we could indicate their enemies by them being red, but obviously we'll go for dark red because there we go. Do whatever you want. So we've got these enemies, and they're going to have an enemy script on them. Now I've already made the enemy script, so I could just put it onto one here, and if I clicked on here to apply all of the prefabs will now have the enemy script. Here you can see enemy health, like so. So in the enemy health script, what do we want to do? Well, we will use scriptable objects eventually to store stats on different enemy types, so that we can easily, and that'll store like the name, or we can just have data on an enemy. But for now, we'll have each enemy health script. We'll store a public. You know, actually, we'll do it now. We'll do it now. So let's right-click, create. We'll call it enemy stats. And what we can do in the enemy stats script is we can make it a scriptable object. So we can do create asset menu, file name. Now, I've done plenty of videos using scriptable objects, so this should be common to you. If it isn't, then obviously go check them out. So enemy stats, menu name, and we'll make a thing on the menu called enemy slash stats, but enemy scriptable objects. So and also make sure it derives from scriptable object, obviously. So inside here we want to store a public int max health, and we want to store a let's have it at the top, public string name. Obviously it doesn't quite like that because there's already a name component, but if you put a new string name, what it'll do is whatever you put here will override its name in the actual. If you reference the object .name, it'll use this instead. I'm not quite sure how that works with scriptable object actually. No, I'm pretty sure it works the same. Or we could, to be honest, just go for enemy name, whatever you want. And then obviously you would say put enemy max health, but it doesn't really matter. So do we want a name and max health? We don't really want anything else, do we? Just a name and a max health. So then what we can say here is we can say we want a public, well, no, we'll say as private enemy stats. And we then, let's call it enemy stats. Then we want a private integer current health. And what we want to do is on the start, like as soon as this enemy gets like appears in the scene, we want to set its current health equal to enemy stats.max health. So whatever we set on that script object, it will be. So the best thing about this is that if we, for example, decide now this type of enemy should have 20 more health max, we can then do that and it'll change it for all of them. And it's all in one place rather than having it on prefabs, and then if we had a prefab from another prefab, you know, it's just nice to do on the scriptable object, even though prefabs are a good way of doing it too. Then what else do we want on here? We want a function maybe for handling damage, but the thing is, as I said, we're going to have different types of things that take damage. So the enemy health script will take damage when you shoot, and for example, stuff that's breakable. So we want to have an interface. Now I've done a video on interfaces too, but I'll do a quick explanation as I'm doing it here. But obviously the reason I make those standalone videos is for you to watch to understand the topic, and then when we do these kind of videos I can just bring in all these topics. So we'll call it damageable. Is that how you spell damageable? You can, I don't want to, oh, it's just messed up. Great. Damageable. No, that's right. I can spell. Okay. Oh, it's actually compiled it anyway. So damageable is actually not a mono behavior script like this. It's actually quite different. It's an interface. So basically what an interface is, it's not Unity specific. So if we put public, I can't click interface, we basically don't derive, and we get rid of these methods, and we can get rid of these two, unless we actually needed any of them. And all we're going to say here is void, what should we call it? So if it has thingy dot damage, should we just call it damage, or deal damage, like so. Then it might tell you that it needs to be public actually, if we want to call it. No, okay, it's just void deal damage. So what that means is basically any script with this on it, with damageable, must have a function called deal damage. And what that means is, well, I'll explain in a second why that's useful. So for example, on enemy health, if we do comma damageable, that we're basically saying this script, that anything with this script is damageable. So that what we can do is we can say, well, obviously it's not going to compile unless we have implement interface. void deal damage. So I'm going to put it below the start method because it's nicer to have it there. It's always nice to have start at the top. Now what it's basically saying is it's letting Unity know that anything with this that is damageable has this function, so that no matter what it is, because think about it, the way you'd normally do it is you would have the health script with a deal damage function, and you would have the box with a deal damage function. But if you have this, you can just check components for this, and it's much nicer to do. For lots of things that have the same function, it's a good way to do that. You could have a base class and derive from it. The problem with that is you don't want the enemy health class deriving from the same thing as like the box or crate or breakable thing class. It's just be a bit weird. And then the thing is, you can have as many interfaces as you like, but you can't really derive from multiple scripts or classes. So this is the best way to do it. Now that we've got this deal damage, we can then write the custom code for how this thing handles dealing damage. Now, in reality, we need to have we need to know how much damage is being dealt, so it must bring in an int damage. So back in here, we should say anything that is damageable, even if it doesn't care about the damage, it still needs to take in the damage because some things will care. And then if it doesn't care, we can just not use the parameter. So the enemy health script, for example, does care. The enemy health script will say, all right, health minus equals damage. And then we can have a private void, like check if dead, for example, which we can call whenever we take damage, because we could just put it in there, but it's nice to split things up. So check if dead will say if current health is less than or equal to 0, destroy game object. Which, if you aren't familiar with, we're basically saying, you know, if the health is 0 or less than, because what if we're on 1 health when we take 2 damage would be on -1 health. If that is the case, then destroy the enemy. So that's how we handle that. You know, we take the damage and then check if we're dead. Though, let's say we had a crate. Now I'm actually going to show this in a second. Maybe you want it to break just as you shoot it, right? So I'll show you how to do that. So that's how we set that up. Now what we need to do is we need to let it compile. Now the interface we don't need to put anywhere, we just have it there. So as I've explained, we need to keep a good folder structure. So interfaces, damageable goes in there, and then we can have a folder for enemy stuff, enemy health, and enemy stats. Okay, so we're going to go to the let's create a folder for scriptable objects, and in here we'll have scriptable objects for the enemy, and we can create, and then you go in here, enemy stats, which is the scriptable object we wrote, which stores the name and max health. And we'll call it, you know, test enemy, because that's the type that we've got here. We'll say they should have 100 HP, and they're called test enemy. And if we go to here and we can drag this in, and then press apply all, you'll see that now this guy has it, and this guy does too. So these all have the health now, but we need a way of reducing their health. So if we go to the script on the player, where we handle the camera. So here we go. We want to say, once we've done the raycast to hit something, we get this data back, the what I hit. So instead of saying, you know, debug the name, we can then say if what I hit dot collider. So that's the thing we've hit. So it's basically saying, all right, if we shoot this guy, we've got this. We can then say get component, and we can reference transform, capsule, mess renderer, or enemy health. Now, we don't want to actually check if it has an enemy health script, because that's too specific. Because as I'm saying, we don't want to have to do a if it's an enemy health script, or if it has a box destroyable, or we just want to know, hey, is this thing damageable? And if so, we're going to deal some damage to it. So we're going to say if it has the interface, so dot get component damageable. Okay. If what I hit collider does not equal null, then do this code. Now, rather than trying to get it twice in like the same frame, we could just cache it. So we could say damageable is equal to what I hit dot get that. So that line will get it and store it in here. Now, if the thing we shoot doesn't have it, then it'll be null. So we can say if damageable does not equal null, then we can say damageable dot deal damage. We can pass in a number. Now, just for the sake of this, we can. Well, we're not going to bother having gun scripts yet, so we'll just pass in. We're going to deal 10 damage per shot. Okay. That said, it's an integer, so we can't do 0.5. Maybe you want stuff to do. Maybe you want to deal damage as a float, but have health as an integer. Why would you do that? Just keep stuff as integers. If you really did want your damage to be as a float, then you would just have to change the health to be a float system, but integers just nicer and neater. And also, if you're displaying health, you don't have to bother with rounding, because if it's an integer, then it's never going to need rounding. You won't get any decimals. So anyway, we're going to deal damage when we shoot. And as you know, the other script, when it deals damage, it's going to reduce its health, and then when it gets to 0 or less, it's going to die. So theoretically, this should work right now. Now, usually when I say that, I've missed a step, but we'll see. So we can't view enemy health right now, but let's try. So we're gonna go click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. 10 damage, has 100 health, 10 hits. And the stuff dies. So I mean, there you go. That's the basics of it done. We can actually shoot and kill enemies now. All right, we're 16 minutes into the video. We've got the shooting working. Got the enemy script working, got an interface. We've actually built up quite a bit. What else should I do right now? I guess I could make it so that we have a quick system of having like an automatic weapon where you don't have to spam click for everything. Now, when we actually add different weapons and the weapon classes, we'll sort it into having different types of weapons. So like, for example, pistols, you have to click for each shot, and then there'll be weapons where you can hold down and it'll fire every, however many seconds, like point something. Just quickly now, if we actually wanted to do that, I guess what we'd do is we'd have a private I enumerator rapid fire. I don't know. Now what we could do is, actually I'm not going to bother with that this time. It's just useless mess. I mean, if you really wanted to just kill stuff really quickly, you could change this get mouse button down to just get mouse button, and what would happen is it would do it every frame. So if you were holding a mouse down for 10 frames, then the thing would be dead. Now, obviously, yeah, it's different guns are going to have different damages, which we're going to deal, and they're going to work in different ways. So obviously we'll have maybe shotguns fire like multiple bullets spread out slightly. We can have weapon spread and bullet holes and stuff. So yeah, we can move on to that next time. Obviously, I don't want to keep these videos dragging on. I want to keep them, each video has its own purpose. So this video's purpose was initially to add proper shooting and dealing damage. Actually, what I'll do quickly before the end then, these are enemies, right? So let's create a 3D cube, like it's a crate you can hide behind. But let's say this, let's say that this crate is actually, is that above the ground? I mean, it doesn't matter, but I'm getting lost here. No, it's a 1.5 to be on the ground. Okay, so what we want is we want this cube to perhaps be a crate to hide behind. Now it's a bit big. Okay, so what we'll do is we will just put it there, and we'll call it crate. Obviously, we could give it. We could just give it like a crate texture, but I'm not going to bother looking one up right now. I mean, let's just give it a material, why not? Material, crate. We'll give it some kind of orangey brown colour. I don't know. I mean, I know it's wood, so it'd be more brown, but hey, we'll go for that. And we'll add this to the prefab, so we've got a crate now. And let's say that these crates just die instantly on one shot, right? So they'll block the shot, but they only block one shot. Maybe you want these crates not to die or anything, but, let's just say they do. So, and let's also rotate the player just to face this way. I can't type, there you go. Alright, so these crates, they want a script on them that can take damage and just destroy, right? So, we're going to write our own script for it. It'll be a very short script, and this is just attachable to anything that dies in one hit. So all we need to do is we need to go to scripts, and we can create a C# script called... Now, to be honest, it's not a bad thing to call it destroy in one hit, because it's like a component. Like, you put this on anything that gets destroyed in one hit. So destroy in one hit. Now, the best thing about this is we don't have to then reference anything with destroying one hit. That's not what we have to do. Like if I go to the crate and say you get destroyed in one hit, apply to all, so all crates get destroyed in one hit. All we need the code in here to do is do comma I damageable, because this anything with the script is damageable, and as you know, that means that we have to have the damageable thing. So what happens when this thing when someone calls deal damage on this script? Well, we'll just say destroy the game object it's attached to. We don't care about how much damage has been dealt. We don't need to store health. We just know we die. So that's a really quick script just to add. Obviously, some things take damage and they take health damage, or damage to their health. Some things just die instantly. Obviously, you could have a health script and this thing just has like 1 HP or something, but it's silly, you just do it this way. It makes more sense. So if we press play now, and we shoot these guys, I'll take a few hits and then they'll die. If we shoot this one, it'll die. Few hits, and so on. And then obviously the floor doesn't die. But there you go. So this is all working now. It's building up pretty well. Obviously, this is all we're going to cover this video. So I hope you like the series coming along. Obviously, leave suggestions in the comments below. I'll keep this going until I'm satisfied, or until everyone's satisfied with how it is. Obviously, just keep leaving video suggestions, not just for this series, obviously for other videos as well, like specific topics to cover in Unity, or types of games you want me to cover mechanics for, or anything like that. I just want to keep making videos, so leave the ideas in the comments below. If you haven't already, join the Discord server, link is in the description below as well. And obviously if you haven't already, then like and subscribe would mean a lot. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and goodbye.